Good afternoon, everybody. I will call the February 25th, 2026 Met Council meeting to order. As usual, we will start today's meeting with the Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement Statement, and I will turn it over to Councilmember Lilligren to read it.
Thank you, Chair. The Dakota Land, Water, and People Acknowledgement. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the 7-county region, is the ancestral homeland of the Dakota Oyate, who are present and active contributors to our thriving region. As part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address the unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Oyate, the Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Oyate, the 11 federally recognized tribes in Minnesota, Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the 7-county metro region home.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Members can see it posted, and if there are no objections or changes, we can move on to our business. Okay, next, can I get a motion for approval of the February 11th, 2026 council minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we are on to the public invitation for comment. Interested persons may address the council on matters not on the agenda. Each speaker, this is a reminder to all, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. When you speak, please state your name for the record, your place of residence, and what organization you represent, if any, and then you may share your comments with us. As we do each meeting, we start with those who have pre-registered, and so I will call you up one by one, and we'll start with Michael Wright.
Hi, thank you. Michael Wright, Minnetonka, Minnesota. This is my wife, Barbara. She'll be reading today.
Members of the council, my name's Michael Wright. I'm a frequent Metro Mobility rider. I'm legally blind and I'm here today on the clock. First, let me state clearly for the public record, I am not an attorney and this is not legal advice. Every day across the Twin Cities, disabled riders are left stranded on curbs in the freezing cold and inside, afraid to go to the bathroom because their ride might show up. They end up calling in just to ask, where's my ride? When your riders are subjected to untimely pickups and zero visibility into their transit, these are not customer service issues. These are clusters of documented, systematic ADA violations. Under Title II of the ADA, this agency is strictly prohibited from enforcing capacity constraints on paratransit riders. In our research, we found that there are 3 violations occurring, namely the ADA regulations contained in Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations 37.131 F3I A B and C. For years, these issues have persisted despite failed audits and innumerable complaints. My son and I got tired of waiting for the government to fix this, so we built the solution ourselves and it's ready to be deployed to the entire Metro Mobility fleet immediately. You might be thinking the technology is too expensive. Maybe you believe that to give riders a live map on their phone, you may have to spend millions on software or use databases with sensitive PII and HIPAA data to make it work. Or maybe you envision complicated, time-consuming integrations. We founded Wright Telematics and built a tracking platform called Transit Tracker. It operates on a zero-knowledge architecture. We don't ask for, collect, or touch a single piece of information, personal information like names, addresses, or disabilities. You simply plug a tracker onto the OBD2 port of the van and give the rider access to watch that specific vehicle approach on their smartphone in real time. It does not require you to rip out your current system. You literally don't have to change anything you're doing. The data liability of our infrastructure is non-existent because we don't track the person, we track the asset. And it costs exactly $15 a month per vehicle. That's 50 cents a day to stop the angry calls, 6 cents per ride to give the riders their dignity back, and only about half of 1% of the FTA Section 5310 grant you get each year to pull this agency into ADA compliance. All that at the flip of a switch. We're really making it that easy for you. We believe that the concept of accessibility isn't just about ramps. It should include freedom of information for the most vulnerable among us. When you don't make the riders happy, when you make the riders happy, the drivers will be happy. Let Transit Tracker do the heavy lifting for culture change. We aren't the only ones who see this as a definitive solution. Senator Scott Dibble has reviewed this exact proposal. As of last week, he formally encouraged Metro Transit to take this pitch seriously. I'm submitting this speech and the details of the Transit Tracker to the clerk to be entered into the permanent public record. The technology exists, the budget exists. The need for a solution is immediate. The only thing missing now is your willingness to do the right thing. We are ready to discuss in a meeting as soon as tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for that information and testimony. I want to thank you for bringing such detail forward to us. Our clerk does have the information. She's going to scan it in, and it will be distributed to every council member for review, and our staff will be following up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sarah Rodman.
Hello. Hello, council members, chair. My name is Sarah Rodman, and I am an employee of the Met Council in the Community Development Division, and I am a resident of Minneapolis. I'm standing here today to remind you that while Tom Homan announced the end of the Metro Surge operation, ICE is very much still active in our region. Further, those that were illegally detained without due process are still in detention in terrible conditions. We must not forget about them. Their families are still left to pick up the pieces, the loss of income, loss of childcare support, and loss of loved ones while facing uncertain futures. Families in our region still live in fear of violence perpetrated by federal forces because they are absolutely still active, especially outside of the urban core. Yet again, we remind you, one of our goals in Imagine 2050 is our communities are healthy and safe. What can we do with our resources and institutional power to support these families and individuals whose lives have been ripped apart illegally and inhumanely? We have financial power, convening power, power to influence public policy, direct control over programs that serve our most vulnerable populations. What other powers do you hold in your position as a council member? We have to use new tactics. We may not have examples we can look to in other areas because we are being uniquely targeted in this time. The Met Council still needs to take action to support and protect our region's residents and our employees, particularly our frontline public-facing employees who are most vulnerable to detainment. Employees need to have guaranteed explicit policies that their job and income isn't at stake if they are illegally detained or make a decision in their time of work to protect themselves from ICE or other federal forces. This can't be taken on a case-by-case basis because that will just add more stress and uncertainty after the violence has already occurred. We need to be preventative to prevent violence from happening to our employees and our residents who use our services by having those stated guaranteed policies. A few other things I request the council to consider: prevent more ICE offices or detention centers from being built or converted in our region. Support cities in that prevention. Support cities who want to take action against ICE with policy assistance. Push Governor Walz to enact an eviction moratorium and ban ICE from Metro Transit property.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Mike Roberts.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Michael Roberts, and I am a 14-year employee of the Metropolitan Council in Environmental Services. I am an electrician and maintenance staff, and I'm actually the steward for the electricians, which we have about 40 of them. We're all IBW members, so the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. The IBW 110 and 292 in Minneapolis They say I was a St. Paul resident also. She actually a residency. We took a position a couple months ago on ICE stance as well in their occupation. And they put out this statement I wanted to read to you today. Brothers and sisters, over the past few months, the federal government has filled our streets and communities with thousands of masked federal agents with the stated goal of finding, detaining, and deporting violent criminals who reside in our communities without proper documentation. However, their actions have been drastically different. These federal agents have shown up to schools, daycares, churches. They have dragged people from their cars, broken down doors, taken people from their workplaces. Their actions have not been limited to undocumented individuals. On multiple occasions, United States citizens have been victims of such actions. Oftentimes, these actions were taken without judicial warrants, a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment. Citizens of the Twin Cities exercising their First Amendment rights to assemble have been met with chemical irritants, threats of violence, and, as we all know, lethal force. The escalating tensions that have entered our streets or our job sites and our places of worship. These escalated tensions between federal agents and our communities culminated in the killing of Renee Good. We make no statements on the character of Renee Good and do not know her, but she was a mother and a wife and a United States citizen. She leaves behind an orphan, a widow, a broken community, and with any loss of life, this is a tragedy, and no citizen should be shot in the street by their own government. If our actions were to cause death, we would and should be held accountable. We would and should lose our licenses and careers. We must hold our government to the same standard we hold ourselves. After all, our government is one of the people, is one that is of the people, by the people, for the people. Regardless of your stance, the actions of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and the federal government, their handling of the current situation sets a dangerous precedent that could very well be used against other groups such as organized labor. This is why we call for an immediate action, an immediate limitation of ICE activities to execution of judicial warrants, the swift passage of enforcement of local city, county, and state laws to prevent federal law enforcement from hiding their faces and identities, a full stop of the escalating means that actions of the federal government, i.e. warrantless stops and searches, use of chemical means on crowd control and assault community members, full transparency in the investigation of the shooting of Renee Good and forthcoming communities at the same time, all stewards and union officials to enforce Section 3, Section 2, G, and 5 of the Inside Construction Agreement to ensure as far as possible that all jobs shall be performed with maximum safety. We further call for safety to include freedom from unreasonable search and seizure to our IBW members. In solidarity, members of IBW Local Union 110. So I wanted to read that to you guys today because we haven't heard a response or anything to that respect from the Met Council. At this time, that when it was written, another union member, Alex Purdy, lost his life after that. And the international IBW put this statement out. IBW statement of death of union member Alex Purdy. No matter where you fall on the political spectrum or where you stand on the debates surrounding immigration, Alex's death is a tragedy. The IBW's Constitution calls for each of us to seek human justice, human rights, and human security, and to refuse to condone or tolerate oppression of any kind. What happened in Minneapolis is not only a tragedy, but an injustice. We call on President Trump and DHS to move immediately to de-escalate the tension in Minnesota, to provide a full and fair accounting of Saturday's tragic shooting, and to work with local officials and law enforcement to protect constitutional rights and the health and safety of everyone, regardless of their political views. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Is there anybody else who would like to speak who has not signed up? Okay. Seeing none, I want to thank those who did speak today for your candor with us, and I will move on to our consent business for the day. There are several items on today's consent agenda. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions about any of the items on the agenda? No questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Thanks. Okay, we are on to non-consent business, which is the reports of standing committees. We have one business item from Community Development, and I will pass it to Councilmember Lilligren.
Thank you, Chair. The Community Development Committee brings one non-consent item forward for our consideration. It's business item 2026-50. It's to revise forecasts for 16 cities and townships following the issuance of the 2025 system statements. Through our system statements, the Imagine 2050 regional policies and systems planning are downscaled to the local level. Local growth forecasts are one element of the system statements. Following system statements issuance, council staff communicated and negotiated with representatives of 20 cities and townships, and also one county government, that's Washington County. Council staff were able to resolve issues or conclude agreements on forecast adjustments with all but 4 cities. Those 4 cities have requested system statement hearings and will be addressed separately through that process, as prescribed in the Metropolitan Land Planning Act. Council staff are recommending forecast adjustments that are reasonable and likely, that are substantiated by known or likely development plans, that are viable with local land supply and local systems capacities, and do not pose system impacts. All of the resulting forecasts in this business item can be accommodated with planning and systems investments. The full set of adjustments in item 2026-50 expands the region totals in 2050 by 0.6%. Post-system statements adjustments are not the only opportunity for forecast adjustments. Council staff routinely receive requests and arrive at staff-to-staff agreements on forecast adjustments during the preparation of comprehensive plan updates. The formal actions on forecast adjustments are brought to the council when the local adjustments have not been controversial. Communities can also bring forecast adjustment requests with amendments to existing 2040 plans. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to make the motion, but before we vote, I would ask that Councilmember Cedarberg be recognized for a statement. So, Madam Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council revise local forecasts in Imagine 2050 for 16 cities and townships as detailed in Table 1. Also, that we revise sewer service forecasts in the water policy plan for 15 cities and townships as detailed in Table 2. Also revise affordable housing need allocations in the housing policy plan for 15 cities and townships as detailed in Table 3. And finally, to include the information in revised system statements to be reissued.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. I will start in a regular process. Is there a motion?
I moved it.
Moved it. Is there a second? Okay, I will open it up and I will pass the floor now to Councilmember Cedarberg.
Thank you, Chair Hutchinson and Chair Lilligren. I want to speak today about the White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan Work Group, the communities participating in that effort, and how this has impacted their planning efforts. As background, the White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan Work Group has been charged by the legislature to develop a comprehensive plan to ensure communities in the White Bear Lake area have access to sufficient, safe drinking water to allow for municipal growth while simultaneously ensuring the sustainability of surface water and groundwater resources to supply the needs of future generations. The plan is to be submitted to the legislature by June 30th, 2027. This is a new wrinkle that's been introduced into the planning process, where there are and may be strong competing interests for water supply in the subregion around White Bear Lake, and this is primarily in my district. I want to begin by thanking these communities, and in particular the cities of Lake Elmo, Hugo, North St. Paul, Forest Lake, and Oakdale, for their continued open and honest dialogue as we have pursued this planning process. They have worked with our staff to to express their concerns, met with me, and stayed in communication throughout. I also want to sincerely thank Executive Director Barajas and thank the council staff for their outreach to their communities, which has been incredible. I also want to acknowledge these communities' commitments to longstanding and ongoing efforts related to water sustainability. To name a few, some or all of these communities have participated in water conservation and smart salting programs, developed and led novel stormwater reuse programs, and managed drinking water contaminated by PFAS. And throughout these challenges, these communities continue to thoughtfully engage in the planning process and sustainable water development. These communities get it. They live it every day. So forecasts are a vital first step for all our communities in the comprehensive planning process. Many of my colleagues represent cities on the urban edge of the metro area and have also heard from their communities about the pressures they are under to plan for the next generation of people who will call this region home. Because these numbers are so important, we know that transparency in our process is crucial, and we owe it to our regional partners to walk alongside them in challenge and in opportunity. For many communities, the deadline has passed, as noted. These revisions have been submitted, and through fruitful dialogue, numbers were adjusted. For communities in my part of the region, that process had to be suspended pending the results of the White Bear Comprehensive Plan Work Group, which concludes in 2027. My commitment to these communities is that they will have the same opportunities others in the region once this process, including appeals submitted by several communities in this region, and the White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan Work Group has played out in 2027. We know that the council does not govern water supply. However, we are committed to ensuring there's clean water for future generations. Therefore, I believe we owe it to our regional partners affected by the White Bear Lake Comprehensive Plan Work Group to do our part to ensure the balance of forces they face is carefully and openly considered. I've spoken with the regional administrator, Chair Lilligren, Chair Hutchinson, and council staff to convey these concerns and ask that they ensure we take a fresh look at the forecasts that were adjusted in Districts 11 and 13 once the two public processes are complete, regardless of their outcomes. This will ensure that we fulfill our part of our partnership and maintain our commitment to be open and transparent partners with these communities in setting these foundational numbers. Thank you, Chair Lilligren and Chair Hutchinson.
Thank you, Councilmember Cedarberg. Before we move on, I'd like to know if there are other questions or comments on this item. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment. I really want to thank our staff, some of whom are sitting here in the room. Thank you very much. There's 2 of the cities out of the 16 are in my district, and they were very appreciative and thankful for the good dialogue and the responsiveness to these small cities. They are small places that don't have a lot of planning staff, and we really, our council really stepped in and helped come up with new numbers, and they are very, very thankful. So.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I will make a short comment to kind of give thank yous all the way around. I have been talking with Councilmember Cedarberg about this and other issues in her district, and she spends countless hours with her communities and sometimes not the easiest of meetings, as I've only heard a little bit of legend. And I just want to thank you for your above and beyond commitment to the issues and working with your communities. I also want to thank the staff. These are sometimes tricky issues, but there's always a way forward. And that's through discussion, and I think you've all shown a lot of willingness to work together on solutions that work for everybody and a lot of future commitment here. I am going to ask the regional administrator to say a couple of words. It's really his staff who's worked so hard on this, so I'll pass it to the regional administrator.
Thanks, Madam Chair, council members, and I'm looking at Executive Director Barajas to hit cleanup. So if you can make your way this way just to make sure I don't miss anything, I'm going to make 3 kind of like concluding points I think align with everything we're hearing here. Thanks for the conversation last week, council member. The 2020, so sorry, my brain went to 2024. We're past that year. We're going to go ahead to real time. There are a couple different pieces going on. There's regional population estimates, which require going through the process, some of which is laid out here. We continue in that process with some of our communities not listed in the business item today, as was discussed. This spring provides opportunity for ongoing resolution to that through the process that'll play out. And so I want to acknowledge that piece will be a part of it. That's separate and distinct from this conversation around the White Bear Lake watershed, which has a longer timeline, both before this year and way into the future. And I think for the policymaking body here, it's important to re-acknowledge the point Councilmember Cedarburg made, which is there is hope. Bless you. There is hope that there will be additional clarity or information that comes through as a task force convenes or concludes in 2027. But there's also a reality that there may not be great clarity at that time based on the information and the complexity of this topic that continues on. And so continuing to have conversations around this table, while I would continue to say I think it prudent that this body wait until that information come to fruition in the coming years, 2027 is both not that far away and becomes important to what we may do beyond that date, depending upon what we know. And so I want to double down on the commitment that there's a role and responsibility for this body to continue to figure out what that'll look like. And we'll continue to keep those conversations in front of us, working with community development and environmental services. And then I forgot my third point, so it must not be as important as the other two. But thankful that this is a small number of communities we continue to work with. That doesn't minimize the issue for those communities, but it does second the importance of continuing to find our way through, and to see this list today really validates where we're at. I'm looking at Lisa. Would you like to add anything? Okay. I didn't miss anything or mess it up too badly. If we find anything else out, we'll follow up along the way, but we look forward to continuing these dialogues with the communities in your district in the weeks ahead.
And I'd just like to double down on Councilmember Barber's comment about the staff being incredibly hardworking, incredibly engaging, incredibly showing up and answering phone calls to me and to the communities as well. And they have also expressed their appreciation for that, being able to take meetings at the last minute and communicate. So really, everybody has said, great job all around.
Any further great jobs for anybody? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. There are no reports from Environment and Management today, and that means we're moving on to Transportation. 2 business items from the Transportation Committee. Turning it over to Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, council members, business item number 2026-32, same week, is regarding the approval of the 10-year lease of the 2550 University Avenue. Trip agents are responsible for inspecting fares, assisting in upholding rules for riders, providing first aid, and administering Narcan. Currently, Trip space is temporarily set up at Haywood Garage and at the St. Paul LRT O&M and are over capacity. Team plans to hire additional agents to support the safety and security action plan as light rail and bus rapid transit routes open or expand over the next 5+ years. A smaller space for Trip agents is currently being prepared at Target Field Station at Platform 2, and council staff have evaluated several additional properties. The property at 2550 University Avenue is located near Westgate Station, has less cost and build-out, and meets the team's future space needs. The planned space will accommodate over 300 Trip agents. This space will also include the Great Workplace and Power Support teams. Therefore, Madam Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 25I069 with Suntime Commercial Realty Incorporated for the 10-year lease agreement in the amount of $6,770,836.94.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And back to Councilmember Barber for the second item.
Thank you again. Madam Chair, council members, business item number 2026-33, same week, is for the Metro Blue Line Extension Master Utility Agreement. Master Utility Agreement establishes a framework to manage and reimburse NSP, or Excel, for utility relocations and related work where Excel holds compensate, I can't say that, compensable real property interest. The agreement does not authorize the work. Rather, the project will issue a work order detailing scope of the authorization of the work. The project anticipates issuing several work orders. The MUA model was established on prior council projects and approved by FTA. The master utility agreement is funded through the capital grant agreement with Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority. Therefore, Madam Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a master utility agreement number 24M045 with Northern States Power Company to allow for reimbursement of compensable utility relocation costs that conflict with the Metro Blue Line extension in an amount not to exceed $18.6 million.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We have no other reports from committees, so I will turn to our information items for today. The first one is a presentation on our Network Now progress, and I want to invite Adam Harrington to join us, and I want to say a big hello to Adam Harrington, who I haven't seen yet since I joined the Met Council, and it's really nice to see you. Welcome.
Would you like me to do introductions?
Oh, I don't know. Adam is somebody I did get to work with like a lot in the past, and so it's nice to see you.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. Happy to be here. This is a little bit of a check-in on the work that we've been doing on Network Now over the past year and a half almost, as we came before the council in March 2025 to receive the endorsement of this framework for Network Now, which really affects the entire system of Metro Transit and those routes that we contract through MTS. Going across the top of the screen, just some reminder of the principles that we are using as we move forward with Network Now. One, to adapt to the market changes that we've seen since 2020, and we're still learning as we go and partnering with a number of communities to better understand what the right fit is in some of these areas. We're preparing for Metro Line implementation, and that means BRTs and Green Line extension. We're maintaining the service on a reliable basis. Some may recall back in 2022, we were challenged with a workforce shortage that led to some inability to execute all the trips that we had scheduled for our customers. And so we want to make sure that we continue to scale our improvements in a way that we're delivering reliable service. We want to build on the success where we see good ridership growing, which I'll talk a little bit about, and of course, providing access across our system in the metro area. The highlights below are really how we intend to do that through Network Now, improving access to jobs, residential areas. We're making improvements to 70 plus of our routes. Right now, Metro Transit operates 101 routes, including LRT. And so we've got quite an advance in where we're improving frequency across the system. We've got 15-minute service or better on probably 22 routes now. We're working towards hiring for Green Line extension and getting our service up to every 10 minutes on light rail. And we're quite a ways into implementing new metro microzones. One of the things I want to mention before I move to the next slide is it also says discontinuing 50 routes that had been suspended since 2020. So those are a lot of mostly commuter express routes that had 2 to 3 trips per direction and are really neighborhood oriented. One of the shifts that we have in Network Now is focusing on our primary freeway corridors into the downtowns, and you'll see how those things come together as I go forward. So what we did, this is a map of all the routes that we've improved over the course of 2025. So this is only about 2025 in this slide. We'll talk about 2026 and 2027 a little bit later, but in 2025, we improved frequency and service on 54 of the 101 routes that we operate, which is a really big lift. And by doing that, we've implemented 35% of all those improvements we identified within the Network Now framework, including strengthening the frequency of our service, the all-day express, new metro microzones, and of course, implementing the new BRT lines. This is a summary of what we did each quarter and as a reminder to the council that we have an opportunity each quarter. We call them bus operator picks, where operators choose their work, and that's the time when we make an implementation for any number of these changes. So you can see the list for each one of these from March, June, August, and December. And of course, probably top of mind for everyone is Gold, B, and E lines, which are really successful launches of those new BRT services, as well as a number of local bus route improvements that we made throughout the system that are both contracted and operated by Metro Transit. One of the elements of implementing this service is how does that affect our overall system? In 2025, we had about a 12.5% increase in the hours of service across the entire system. So not to confuse 35% of what we said we do in the plan to 12.5% improvement across the entire system. That's been a really significant change for our customers. As an example, we're now up to about 7,200 trips scheduled each weekday. And that's a result of adding about 800 trips over the course of the last year. On weekdays, 800 to 1,000 trips per Saturday or Sunday have been added over the past year. So there's a significant growth in service that our customers are enjoying right now. And of course, our Metro lines implemented. This map shows just the BRT lines. Blue line and green line are also part of this network, but we're really proud of the work that everyone across our organization has accomplished in implementing Gold Line and B Line and E Line. All of those services run every 10 to 15 minutes, 7 days a week. So it's an exciting new venture to have that expanse of new coverage for BRT and better facilities and service for our customers. We continue to not only invest in our BRT lines, but also our better bus route system as well, where we can learn from what we're implementing with BRTs and apply that to some of our local services also. Adapting to the market, this map shows the 4 commuter express corridors leading into downtown Minneapolis. With the implementation of frequency improvement coming in 2026, some of them happening in a couple weeks here in March with the Route 270, we will have completed all points of the compass, including Orange Line and Blue Line and Route 94 into downtown Minneapolis, where there's a all-day express service into downtown Minneapolis, and most of those covered into downtown St. Paul as well. So we're really excited to offer some flexibility to commuters who, as we know, have varying shift times now compared to 2019, when it was more of a typical 8 to 5 kind of service and people were riding 4 or 5 days a week. We're trying some new access. We have some new routes here that we've implemented. The Route 345 between Woodbury, Dakota County Service Center, the airport, and Mall of America. That's a new service running throughout the week, and really trying to see how this market does and promoting it with our partners, as well as a new crosstown between Northtown and Blaine, coming across to Brooklyn Park, across 85th Avenue, and over to Osseo, really trying to connect between transit centers and provide that new access in Brooklyn Park on 85th, which we haven't had a route that exclusively does that before. So that's a new exciting service for us there. And then lastly, the Route 827, which was kind of a venture as part of the North Star corridor in bringing this back a little bit earlier to provide service on East River Road in Fridley and Northeast Minneapolis to serve the development of light industrial and employment up there, as well as a lot of new residential in Northeast Minneapolis on Marshall Street. So really happy to be able to test these new markets and watch them as they grow. And we'll probably be looking at evaluations over the course of the 12 months, that first 12 months, and see how they're doing and move from there. 4 new Metro micro zones. We had 2 that we implemented in January, Roseville and Woodbury, right before we're opening Gold Line in Woodbury. We're really happy about that. And we're testing out the Roseville area as well. It's a interesting case because we do have some local bus routes that aren't the strongest performers, but we want to see how people choose their rides between these 2 options, and we'll be evaluating the performance of that as well. And then just recently with Blaine and Bloomington, adding those new Metro micro zones that have proven to be very popular. We've got 150,000 plus boardings that have been accomplished through all of these zones. We're hearing great things, and of course, the challenge is managing the extent of these zones, because there's always someone on the other side of the border that would really like to have that option as well. So looking ahead into 2026, on Monday, I shared this slide with the Transportation Committee. This is all of the routes that are having some kind of a schedule change in March, starting March 14th, 2026. There's orange lines that represent construction impacts, roadway impacts, and then the purple lines are the actual service improvements to customers, and then the blue lines are those routes where we're improving facilities for our bus operators and on the recovery end and restroom access. So now we're up to 42% of our Network Now framework implementation with these services in play. A little more detail on what's actually happening for March. I'll point out a couple things here. One, Route 22, moving it to every 15 minutes. Again, adding another route to the 27 routes that we have planned to have every 50 minutes or better. So we're really excited to be able to do that. And Route 94 between the downtowns, improving that service to every 50 minutes from every 20 in the rush hour, slowly building towards that Gold Line extension coming later in 2027. And then again, the hourly service on the Route 270 and making a little bit of a routing adjustment for people coming here to downtown St. Paul via the Lafayette Business Park and the state office buildings, which we've heard a lot from customers about. Over the course of the summer, we've got a really big project with Renew the Blue, so we're in development right now about how to best address that service while Blue Line is under closure and construction for that very much needed state of good repair work. And we have a number of other routes that are slated for improvements in the Anoka-Coon Rapids area associated with some of the North Star changes. And then lastly on this list is Route 14, Better Bus Route. It's another example of one of those local bus routes where we're looking at making some slight routing adjustments, some bus stop spacing, improving those bus stops that we're anchoring on with better ADA pads and shelters in some places. So we're moving forward with advancing that as well. And then continuing on between summer and the end of the year, Better Bus Routes 74, looking at how we might optimize some of our University of Minnesota bus routes, improving evening service on a number of local routes. Again, this is an area where we've heard a lot from customers. Can we get better service in the evening and on weekends? So this is part of that as well. And then at the end of the year, we get to pull all those extra schedule adjustments out when construction wraps up as well. And then lastly, we've got 2 new Metro Micro Zones that will be advancing out of the 8 that are part of Network Now as part of our work this year. My last slide is a little bit of a look ahead, just a reminder of those topics we're going to be tackling in 2027. And I'll just say it's a really big lift. This is 2026. We have a little bit of a chance to catch our breath. It's still growth mode. 2025 is really big. 2027 is going to be really big. And so we have a lot of work that we're coordinating on right now to make sure we can execute all these plans very well or flawlessly if you're a Green Line extension. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. That was, I have like a list, and I think others do too. Great presentation. I will open it for questions from Transportation Chair Barber. Starting there, and then I will go to Councilmember Lindstrom.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine are more comments, but I would just say, when we look at this, there's one thing to make a plan. It's another thing to actually go do all the things. And this is a perfect example of doing all the things. Having sat through these conversations going back to COVID and coming out of COVID, and we'd have these sad presentations of ridership down and not having operators and not having this or not having that, to see what was accomplished in 2025 and what's coming up for 2026 and 2027 just brings joy to my heart, because we all knew we could do it, but it was a huge team effort, and there's so many people that have been involved with it. I would also point that this is really the vision that when we all came on council of having a truly built-out connected network, and that is what we're seeing as those maps come up, and it is really something extraordinary. I will also point, Transportation Committee also, as part of the service update presentation, had a part of the presentation dedicated to the workforce and what we've been doing with that. And I just want to run through real quickly some of the key accomplishments from that. The key takeaways were that headcounts, transfers, and retention are all up. We're meeting all of our bus operator hiring targets. Train operating hiring targets are achievable if our trends keep going. Bus and light rail maintenance techs are on track to be fully staffed in 2026. And we've, of course, as we'll be hearing from the chief soon, the police net hiring is continuing to show good improvement. These are big things. These were huge obstacles that we had because we can't do all this growth without getting all the people. So those two things play together. So I really just am so proud of the work that we're all doing with Network Next and with Metro Transit Forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. Second, third, and fourth, everything that was just said. Just two quick questions. The two new metro micro zones in 2026, can you remind me where those are going to be? And then my second question, East Side Metro restructuring. Remind me what that's all about.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilmember. Two great questions. The East Side Metro restructuring really is about all those routes in Network Now that are orienting towards G-Line Phase 1. And when that comes into play in 2027, that's the time to start making these other route adjustments as well. So things like advancing the Route 3 that goes straight over to Sunray and all those connections on White Bear and what happens on Rice Street and how do we fold those Route 62 and 71 changes into the new structure there. So that's really the East Side restructuring. For the Metro microzones, we have 4 left. We've got Maplewood area, we've got the Invergrove Heights area, we've got the Minnetonka that's associated with Southwest, and we've got the Brooklyn Park Starlight connection. Right now, we're evaluating how those 4 come into play. It's likely we're going to advance the Minnetonka one first this year because we want to make sure it's ready to go for whenever Green Line is established to open next year. So 2 of them will be this fall, and we're still sorting out exactly the sequence of which one of those, but one of them is likely going to be Minnetonka area.
Thank you.
Council members? Councilor Chambliss, Vice Chair Chambliss.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of us council members are really happy to see how the network now has unfolded, and especially through, as was stated, the challenges and objectives for hiring that had to be met in order to make that happen. Looking at the map for the improvements, the service changes, and looking at how we were assessing the needs and being flexible in how we were assessing the needs for transportation, I think has led us to the point where we were able to expand the way that we did, along with obviously the extra additional funding that we received from the legislature to expand our services. I want to say that this is important for transit-oriented development as well as we expand our network, because there will be and is expansion of development around the areas where we have BRT and we have local service, and as was stated, it does increase the opportunities for jobs. So well done for everybody.
Any remaining comments? I have one question, but I'll look to the council members. All right, I'll ask my question, and I know that the regional administrator has at least one question. Really, I have 2. The first is general. It's okay if you don't have an answer right now, but would you say that the changes, both recent past and upcoming changes, represent adaptation to a different kind of commute pattern, one that exists today that didn't used to?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's a great question. In fact, today I was at the Downtown Council as part of one of their transportation subcommittees trying to figure out what are the best ways forward to help grow that part of the market. A lot of what we've added is really the multi-purpose type trip. And so when we add service on Saturdays and Sundays, this isn't just a commute, it's to get to the grocery store, it's to get to the clinic, it's to go shopping. And so there's a lot more service that's oriented towards that than there is just the work commute. There still is a lot of work commute that happens, and downtown Minneapolis in particular is still a strong market, as well as the University of Minnesota is emerging as a continuing growing market, even though a lot of the students live right near campus. But there's a shift for sure in the commute aspect of it. So again, that's why we're trying to focus that on a few key corridors, and what we're seeing is more the all-day, multi-purpose type use of our service.
I'll hold on the questions and just say thank you for addressing all-day transit need. Regional Administrator.
Madam Chair, to that part too, if I could just add one piece to it, Adam, that I found interesting through it. When you do your equity analysis then across your system, what you see is you actually increase in a positive way equity throughout your system by moving toward that type of model as well. And so in alignment with the broader council goals, I mean, that's just something that stands out, that it not only impacts commuters and even people going into white collar job commuters, but it actually has an impact across the entire cascading impact of the system. And you've done a great job telling me that, so I'm using your answers to me. Adam, two kind of like technical questions. Do the North Star hourly service changes that are now in effect post-January show up in the data here, or is that separate and distinct from the service data here?
Madam Chair, Regional Administrator, they are part of the overall picture here as far as the stats go. Now, one of the things that we'll be doing is looking at not just North Star, but all the route changes to see how they're performing, and then see if we want to make some adjustments from there. But that's all part of Now, Network Now, as we incorporated those changes in.
Thank you. And my second question was, so every quarter you're also doing optimization work, some of which I would imagine still wasn't envisioned when Network Now was being built. And every day you go beyond when it was adopted by the council as a plan, you still have your regular quarterly changes. I guess my question is, are you coming up with any quarterly changes that lead to enhancements or optimizations that are now falling outside of the plan here, but are still kind of happening as just a part of a healthy, well-functioning transit agency during this time period?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Regional Administrator, yes. It happens at a very small incremental level. So things like better bus routes, which wasn't specified directly, where we're making some adjustments to where the route might turn or where the bus stops are, is an example of that. But at the same time, we're also looking at how do we make sure that what we said back in really 2024 for Green Line extension, for G Line and the Northeast Metro restructuring, and the Highway 55 corridor. So we're evaluating those three areas in particular to see, are these the changes that are still the right thing to do? Do we want to adjust them? Do we want to make different routing adjustments there? So that's something we're studying in 2026.
That's super helpful. And Madam Chair, just a closing comment for the policy board, because you're always asking the question of like, where is there opportunity and influence? Where do we look ahead? And I actually want to just briefly look beyond Network Now, which we don't have a formal, 28 plan on this, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that the service growth levels that this plan is afforded, in part due to the 2023 transportation bill, they're significant, they're important, they're going to have a difference, as you've all stated, and they're also not something you get to keep doing beyond 27 if we don't continue the advocacy at the Capitol for the types of resources that are needed to continue to see that type of growth. And I'm guessing on this, but I think people are going to get to the end of 27 and say, I love this growth that we're seeing across the system. Wait a minute, what do you mean it can't go on into perpetuity without continued dialogue? And so I do think as you're having opportunities in your community to talk about the Network Now vision, and then people want to talk about what comes next and what does that look like, the advocacy for transit access and resources to serve this region never sleeps. And we can use your help in that space. And I would be happy, and I know Adam or the general manager or anybody else, to arm you with that information as you need it to go forward.
And with that, we'll close this item out. Thank you so much, Adam. Next is quarter 4 update on the Safety and Security Action Plan. This is our second information item. General Manager Kandaras will kick us off here.
All right, Chair Hutchison, council members, as our first batch of presenters takes their seats, I'll go ahead and kick off our Q4 2025 Safety and Security Action Plan update for you. Tonight's presentation is in two parts. We'll start off with that Safety and Security Action Plan action item update. We won't go through all 44 action items tonight, but the presenters who will follow me will spotlight some of the key work that's happening as part of this plan. And then the second part of the presentation will be the quarterly update from Interim Chief Dotseth from the Metro Transit Police Department. Just to put this presentation in context, I wanted to share with you our Metro Transit Forward strategic framework. I know this is becoming a familiar image for you, especially those of you on Transportation Committee. Metro Transit Forward is our strategic framework that guides our work. We developed it in recent years as we respond to our growing, changing system and the changes in the communities we serve. It includes our mission. We connect people, strengthen communities, and improve lives by delivering high-quality public transportation. And we focus on three strategic priorities as we carry out our mission: employees, experience, and service. The Safety and Security Action Plan is one of several items we track under that experience strategic priority. But I think as you'll hear in the presentations tonight, it very much touches on all three elements of this strategic framework. And just to reference back to the Network Now presentation, that's another example of an effort that we really track under service, but we know is directly connected to employees and experience work as well. For 2026, we identified three goals for Metro Transit that we're primarily keen on moving forward this year, which is building ridership, increasing employee rider and community satisfaction, and preparing for a flawless Green Line extension launch in 2027. And certainly our continued efforts to advance the Safety and Security Action Plan play a key role in all three of those goals. You've seen this slide before, just a reminder that the Safety and Security Action Plan grew out of multiple years of work and a lot of effort by council members, including the council work group led by Vice Chair Chambliss, extensive community engagement and employee engagement, and ultimately, the initial version of the Safety and Security Action Plan was endorsed by the council back in June of 2022. So we're nearly 4 years into this work, and yet we view it as a living document. This past quarter, we did add a new action item. So we're up to 44 action items in 3 areas of work: improving conditions on the system, training and supporting employees, and engaging customers and partners. That new action item fits in that second area of work, training and supporting employees, and is focused on our efforts to review and make any needed improvements to employee facility security. Just to give you a sense of our implementation status, this is depicting where each of those individual action items are in terms of implementation. So the majority of our items are in some form of implementation. They're either things that we have put in place that are ongoing, or they were more discrete projects that we have completed. We have some that are still in progress, and that new action item that I just mentioned is the one that's in planning underway. As a reminder, since we aren't going through all action items this evening, you do have the full report available to you that both has a brief status update per action item, as well as a fuller set of metrics that we track beyond what we'll highlight for you this evening. And given we have 44 action items, I know that may come off as somewhat of a scattershot approach to this, but there are some really key themes throughout the work. And one of those is we are focused on building the coordinated layers of official presence on our system. We have heard from riders and our own employees that that official visible presence is part of how we increase safety and the perception of safety on our system. The numbers on this slide are where we ended 2025, since for the most part we're focused on Q4 of 2025 in this presentation. And you'll hear more updates from the police department on their staffing levels. Earlier this evening, you moved forward a business item relating to space for our trip agent program as that continues to grow. February marks 2 years since we've had our initial trip agents on the system. At the end of last year, we had 130, which includes both our own employees and contracted staff. And in our 2026 budget, we have funding to add add over 50 more trip agents. And of course, we have our real-time information center, which helps us keep good situational awareness of our system and respond more quickly to incidents. Supplemental Security started a new contract at the end of last year that we continue to move forward and implement, and our safety ambassadors, including our current partnership with the St. Paul Downtown Alliance. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to Shannon Engstrom to talk about the first legislative report. And I just want to note that you'll hear from many people tonight from Metro Transit. There are many others in the room who aren't presenting tonight, but just I personally want to thank everyone who has a hand in advancing this action plan. It's truly all hands on deck work at Metro Transit, and just really want to appreciate the people who are doing that hard work, including those you're going to hear from tonight. So with that, I'll hand the clicker to Shannon.
Sure. Good evening, council members and chair. I'm Shannon Engstrom, as the GM said, and I am a strategic policy consultant within Metro Transit's Office of the Chief of Staff. I'm a relatively new employee, and as General Manager noted, there are a lot of people that helped to contribute to this report. I was merely the coordinator. This is one of two legislative reports. This was due to the legislature on February 15th. And this is required by statute, passed in 2023, so this is the third year that we have submitted this report. You can find a copy of this on our website, on our public safety page. We're happy to share that with you after today's meeting. The report addresses many requirements that are based in statute. They include overviews of safety issues and actions, our rider code of conduct, the TRIP program, as well as data on fare inspections, administrative citations, crime trends, and the TRIP and MTPD staffing. And lastly, an assessment of TRIP's impact and recommendations. So you'll notice a lot of overlap between this report and the SSAP report. We're trying to align them. One is a statute requirement, one is our own internal, and so you'll see some overlap there. So a few highlights I just want to mention on the next slide, reiterating some of what the general manager has said, and then we'll get more details later in our presentation. But a big area of progress, again, is doubling TRIP agent staffing. So we hired 76 additional agents for a total of 130, and we have a goal of 215 by the end of next year. On November 30th, we also transitioned to contracting with Intercon Security. This tripled our supplemental security coverage at light rail stations, boarding locations in December this past year compared to the previous December. We also strengthened our community partnerships, including our work with the Homeless Action Team, and we're preparing to launch the Transit Rider Social Services Program this spring. We also grew the Metro Transit Police Department through a lot of new HR strategies that the chief will touch on shortly, including a Pathways program to recruit community service officers that can serve as a pipeline to our MTPD officers in the future. And finally, we continue to invest in station improvements focused on visibility, durability, comfort, and public art. And I will turn it over to Anna, my colleague, to share a little bit more about that work in our cleaning and repair standards report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. My name is Anna Flintoft. I'm the Assistant Director of Facilities Planning and Administration. So the Council is required to submit a report to the Legislature about our cleaning and repair standards. This is Minnesota Statute Section 473.412 that was passed into law in 2023 at the same time as the transit sales tax. The report is due annually in February, and we recently submitted the third annual report. The report addresses all of the elements that are specified in law, including standards on the cleanliness and repair of transit vehicles and stations, public feedback on cleanliness and customer experience, expenditures, the frequency, type, and location of repairs, strategies for high-maintenance stations, workforce strategies, and preventive measures against vandalism or graffiti. So a few highlights for 2025. We opened 3 new BRT lines on Metro Gold B and E lines, and that means adding 80 new BRT stations to our maintenance programs. We also have programs that were expanded for en route cleaning of BRT and light rail vehicles between trips at terminals. And this supplements the daily cleaning of all vehicles that occurs at the end of the day at our maintenance facilities. The number of maintenance staff related to cleaning and repairs increased by 25% over the past 2.5 years. And our 2026 budget includes substantial funding for more maintenance workers, both for the existing system and for Green Line extension. We implemented strategies to deter vandalism and graffiti. These are things like public art murals and vinyl clings, the supplemental security program and other layers of presence, and designing major station renovations with ease of maintenance and minimizing graffiti-prone surfaces. We also, in 2025, advanced procurement for new business systems to manage cleaning and repairs. Both the Enterprise Asset Management System and the Customer Relationship Management System will begin implementation this year. And I will turn it over to...
I'll go ahead and take over right here. Thank you. Hello. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce the program highlights from some of the Safety and Security Action Plan. So my name is Tricia Hopkins-Smith. I'm the program manager for peer support. And as kind of a reminder, peer support is an employee-to-employee service to help employees get connected to support and resources following a potentially traumatic incident that might happen in the workplace. So throughout 2025, my team and I met with frontline workers, managers, and other leadership to evaluate the current program and learn where there might be opportunities for improvement. Based on the feedback, we came up with 2 different sub-teams within peer support, the critical incident support team and the general peer support team. And then in November 2025, ATU and Metro Transit leadership signed an agreement that allows members, part of the critical incident support team, to be scheduled for on-call peer support shifts and for compensation for their work. So the creation of these 2 teams and compensation is expected to increase response time and consistency in providing support for folks needing peer support. Just last week, 28 bus and train operators and trip agents completed a 40-hour peer support training, and the new team is expected to launch at the end of Q1. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight an additional full-time position that was added and created based on the feedback that we got about the peer support program. And so this position is the peer support facilitator, and that person was hired and will be an additional support staff to frontline employees and the new peer support counselors. Thank you. And with that, I'll pass it on to Trip.
All right. Hello, Madam Chair and Council members. My name is Shamara Baggett, Trip Manager. Today, I would like to highlight some key aspects of the TRIP program regarding deployment, duties, and staffing. TRIP agents are assigned to proof of payment lines. We began on the green and blue line and have since expanded our coverage to include BRT lines, A, B, C, D, E, as well as gold and orange lines. The responsibility of TRIP includes inspecting fares, promoting rules for riders, and providing wayfinding assistance. They are CPR and Narcan certified, and they provide resources to unhoused individuals. As of December 31st, 2025, we had a total of 130 TRIP agents, which includes 78 internal employees and 52 contract personnel. We are planning to continue our growth throughout 2026. Thank you. Pass it along to Carol.
Madam Chair, council members, my name is Carol Gromfor. I'm here to provide an update on the Transit Rider Social Services Program. So a vendor has been selected. We'll be contracting with Canopy Routes to provide outreach and intensive referral on the transit lines. So this is a gateway service. The focus will be connecting riders to long-term resources for housing, chemical dependency, and behavioral health services. So the contracts are in the final stages of negotiations. So the aim is to have the services live in the spring of 2026. And then the only other thing I would add is that Canopy Routes is bringing extensive experience working with in behavioral health and with local law enforcement agencies and local governments. And so we're really excited to bring them on as a partner and add this additional layer of presence to the transit lines. Thank you. I'll hand it to the chief.
Can we pause for a moment before we move to the next section? Yes, are there questions on the materials so far? I know there's one from the regional administrator.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask if the Canopy Roots organization had previously been one of the transit rider social service intervention program providers in the past.
No, I don't believe they were.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Chambliss.
As usual, I appreciate the quarterly updates on the safety and security plan. I know our council members also appreciate that. We've come a long way, and I'm really excited to see what's happening with this social service program in the spring, and look forward to the future reports and reviewing the report to the legislature as well.
Councilmember Wolf, and then Councilmember Obasaki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know in the past there were some issues where people did not want to give their names to the trip agents because they were going to get an administrative citation and they just didn't want to give their name. Have we worked through that? Are we getting the names of everybody that the trip agents need to give citations to?
Best person to answer that one. Come on back.
Great question, Chair, council members. Yes, we do have some individuals who refuse to just give their name and information. We write refusals on the citations, but we continue to just fill out as much information as possible. We do have cameras on the system, so some individuals may be identified, but some may not be. So we do have refusals as well. But we are getting, I believe, about 50% of our citations with actual information.
Councilmember Obasaki?
Yeah, I know, I'm just gonna do it right now, instead of wait till the end. I just wanna, as a newbie, just wanna give a shout out to the general manager and my man, Mr. Charles, just the transit team. You all are just fantastic. And you just made me smile when you brought up peer support. I'm a peer support specialist myself, so general manager, I remember emailing you. I mean, just fantastic, you all. And the chief and lieutenant, I saw him somewhere, but just wonderful staff. You guys are amazing, so thank you. Oh, he's right. Oh, there you go.
Okay, before we move on, I also want to call out that presentation was just extremely well done.
Absolutely.
Very well done, everyone. So we'll set the bar for Interim Chief Dotseth now and turn the floor to you.
I did not mean to scare everybody away. Somebody come back up and sit with me. That's fine. Chair, council members, good afternoon. My name is Joe Dotseth. I'm the Interim Chief of Police at Metro Transit. And I get the opportunity and the privilege to come every quarter and tell you about all the fantastic work that's going on at the police department. And this quarter is no exception to the previous quarters. Actually, I was preparing the final notes for this presentation today, and we just came from a T-STAT presentation where I'll talk about that in this presentation, but essentially where we're really trying to be very forward-thinking with providing our stats and what's going on with the police department. And there's just countless stories every single day that these officers are doing. We just heard a story a little bit ago about they're sweeping buses late in the evening, and there's somebody on the bus without shoes, and the officer, they have boots in the car. Like, we have all these, they have boots, they go get boots out of the car, and they bring them to the person to make sure they have boots. There's countless stories like this every day, and I'll say this at the end too, but you should be so proud of this police department. And this is your police department. I say that every quarter. This isn't just, we're in some silo and we're not representing them. And I keep going back to Councilmember Lilligren at the last session about how connected you all should feel to this police department. We're here to provide a service, and we're here to work for you. As we think about, I started every quarter really talking about our work plan and our goals. Thanks to Cara Iverson, who's here today. She works in the chief's office, does all the special projects. We did pass out the goals, so you should have those at your tables there. We have 9 goals, right? So this quarter, I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas there that I want to talk about, and we'll also talk about them in the presentation. But crime reduction, overall, you're going to see that there is a decrease in serious crime on the system again for another quarter in a row. Our calls for service number, I looked at it last year, even though this is a year-end presentation, our calls for service numbers are up. They're up this year as well. And calls for service numbers going up is a good thing because that's we can point back to what our officers are doing. They're on the system, they're being visible. So, we closed 2025 out with 111,000 calls for service. And I really think with the staff that we have on board right now, we might hit 150,000 calls for service. And that is fantastic because that shows back to measurable things that the police department is doing. And when we have officers out there in these areas, we're seeing, especially with the beats, you're seeing, dispatch calls for service. And this came out at the last presentation. Dispatch calls for service in most of our areas are decreasing and almost non-existent. It's our officers that are creating the numbers. So community-focused policing, we added staff to the real-time information center. The general manager talked about that in her update as well. And then here today with us in the audience, we hired a police accountability liaison. You're going to hear more about that in future updates. But Linnea is here. Linnea's going to wave. Linnea, we're so glad that Linnea is here. So as our police accountability liaison, and I've talked about that in previous presentations, Linnea's going to keep us honest, right? She's going to be doing auditing for us internally. She's going to make sure that we're adhering to high standards. We'll work with the audit team here at Regional Administration, too, to have a really good, strong partnership. The Police Accountability Liaison reports in the Internal Affairs Unit, right? So that office reports right directly to me. So there'll be more you'll hear about the Police Accountability Liaison, but we're welcome. We're so glad that Linnea is here to help us with that. And then also building that bridge with community, right? So when we're out at community meetings and we're engaging the community, Linnea will be out at a lot of these meetings too, ensuring that the community knows that we're serious about this. And again, nobody's telling us to do this. We believe in this, so we're doing it before somebody tells us to do that. It creates visible presence on the system. Our winter safety plan that we announced last fall, you'll see it in the stats later that the officers and the CSOs are definitely on the system, and those numbers are increasing. Providing exceptional service to internal partners. Our facility liaison program led by Sergeant Maurer, they're out at the facilities connecting with the operators. That's going to be a really big component of as we think about, what's next for the transit police. Well, yes, being good partners and taking care of the riders and being community partners is very important, but ensuring that we're also being there for our staff is very important. So those facility liaisons, that program will continue. Proactive community outreach, the homeless action team, we're working on making that, adding people to that team. We're actually getting ready to, we'll have the update by the next quarterly update. A civilian staff member will be onboarded for that. That'll really help us keep track of everything that's going on. So that's great. Our Safe and Strong University Ave initiative from last summer is going to continue. This summer it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to really focus from University and Dale to downtown here, and that we're working with our partners in St. Paul, much like we did last summer with St. Paul, Ramsey County, the Attorney's Office, also led by Ramsey County Attorney Choi, and really what that looks like to just have some more deterrence and really get out there and work with that. So that work will continue. And then this professional delivery of police services, our joint powers agreements, thanks to the Transportation Committee and the Council for passing that, those will continue. I'm really hoping by quarter 4, quarter 3, this accreditation process that we're working through the State Chiefs Association, there's going to be more about that coming out. So that'll be fantastic to hear about what that looks like. Staffing, I'm going to spend some time on this slide because I am so happy about this. Now, these are numbers, again, at the end of 2025, like the general manager said. So real-time information as of today, there's 118 police officers, right? Highest since August 2021. Community service officers, I think it says on there 28. There's 35 community service officers right now. 6 more start on Monday, so that'll put us at 41. And then we're working through backgrounds. There's double-digit people in backgrounds for CSO. There's double-digit people waiting to interview for CSOs. So actually, we're working with HR. We had to pull the posting down. It's official. There's a wait list to get into the police department to be a community service officer, which is fantastic to think even a year ago, there was like 9 CSOs, and Lieutenant Mohammed is here in the audience. She oversees the CSO program and the recruitment program. It is working. And so under her leadership and the team's leadership, you're seeing all of this stuff start to come together. And now really in my weekly check-ins or bi-weekly check-ins with HR, and we knew this was coming, but we have a problem now. It's like, we gotta make sure the CSOs feel supported, right? And I just was talking to the general manager about this last night. We've been saying, oh, help's coming, help is here. So now we need to make sure that we retain them and we take care of that staff, because I believe that we're going to be at our authorized strength for CSOs is 55. I think we're going to be at that the next time I come to do this presentation. So how we're working with HR, we're going to have to really create an eligibility list to get into the program, which is fantastic. And police officers, you know, as we start thinking about that, we swore in 4 police officers, I think 2 weeks ago. There's another group, I think, of 4 starting. So every other month, there should be a group of police officers between 4 and 8 officers starting. And as the CSOs start coming out of school, there's a big batch this fall that you're going to see transitioning in. And the same thing, I think in May, there's a pretty nice sized group as well. So that's fantastic. So we're going to see that those numbers increase. And even the next group, I don't know when that next group of 4 starts in March, but I mean, we'll be over 120. And I often refer to this 133 number when Chief Harrington was here. That's really the highest number. We're going to be at that number before we know it. And so then as the CSOs start getting ready and get done with school, that's our cadet program, right? They're going to start filling in those police officer ranks. But here's another, like, fresh off the presses. Our lateral officer intake, actually this Thursday, we had to have a special class about lateral officers. People want to come here and work for us. This Be the Difference campaign, there's a flyer there in front of you about what that looks like, and hopefully you've seen it out there. We're gonna start working on our social media presence. Shameless plug, make sure you're following us on social media if you're not. But that Be the Difference campaign is working, and we're gonna continue that. We're working with another partnership with HR on that. That campaign, honesty, service, respect, Be the Difference, it is definitely mattering to not only the community, but the people that wanna work here. So we're going to be just fine. Our support services division too, we're authorized for 40. Thanks to Linnea, and there's some other staff that started as well. We should be, I think we'll be at 38 of our administrative team, which our administrative team behind the scenes, they really make the police department run. So, you know, certainly acknowledging their work, and they're an important part of this too. And then back to, we have a 91% retention rate. And I just saw a presentation too, Shanta from Office of Performance sent this, and I don't know, I might steal her thunder on her presentation, but our year 1 retention rate now is at 95%. And just a couple years ago, I have the wrong number down here, I think 2023, 55%. So we went from one of the worst performers in Metro Transit for first year retention rate to amongst the highest. So our work that our team is doing, it is definitely working. We got to keep up the momentum, right, and keep that moving. But it is working. And then back to the work of Lieutenant Mohammed's team, and Officer Convang is dedicated to recruitment right now, supported by Deb Fields is in there too, and they are going to everything. And they're getting a list of, we'd come back from some of these colleges and we'd have like 2 names. Now they got a big list, and we're actually following up with people. The Community Service Officer Pathways program, that continues as well, right? So we are going to be fine. And so now it is going to be my job and the team's job to make sure the staff is happy, they're motivated, and they want, and we provide support to them, and that's where these goals come in. So just tremendous news about staffing, and I can't wait for next quarter to talk more about that. Proactive patrols, Captain Ahmed is here, who oversees the patrol division. He deserves so much credit for all of the work that the patrol officers are doing. Proactive police calls for service, you can see that number on the far right, it's at up 107% as compared to the same time Q4 of 2024. I think last quarter when I came, it was at like 128 or 129%, so it's still at a very high number. And that's the officers' proactive police calls for service, is them out on the system taking initiative to something. That is fantastic that we're seeing that number so high. And our police onboard presence, that's a lot for the winter safety plan, along with the CSOs, that's up over 100%. So the officers are doing their part, being on the system, and then being proactive in their patrols. we really started talking about this slide, we're talking about stats instead of, talking about total reported crime. It really needs to be total reported offenses. And I'm just gonna keep saying that in every presentation just to start tracking that, because you'll see total reported crime in other reports. Shannon was talking about the legislative report, and you'll see total crime numbers. We gotta always remember when we see that, it's offenses, right? So it's everything that's combined. So when you see these numbers increase, you really got to dive into them to make sure we know why they're increasing or why they're high. Well, because we're driving those numbers. So when you look at this quarter 4 of 2025, that 1916 number, you break that down, smoking was 320, trespass curfew was 249, disorderly conduct was 212, property damage not listed on here, but that was the fourth one at 155. Those 4 offenses are totaling about 50% of the total offenses on the system, right? And those are quality of life issues. Those are issues that our ridership and our transit employees want us to deal with. So seeing that number, you really got to look into it. So if you see this number in other reports, or you get questions about that, I just encourage you to always have them come back to our team and we can share that data and break it down. But we're driving the total reported offenses numbers. And as more officers come here, you're going to see that number increase because they're going to be actively responding to stuff. Serious crime, really, we call this the FBI top 7, but that's really serious crime on the system. And when you look at quarter 4 here, the 174 number, I went back, it's not listed on here, but since we started the SSAP, 174 is the lowest number. So when you compare the 174 number to the same time, the 206 number, quarter 4 of 2025 to quarter 4 of 2024, serious crime is down 15%. And if you go back even 1 year further, that 248 number, serious crime is down 30%. And when you even break down this 174 number, aggravated assaults were down 25%, and robberies were down 50%. What's really driving that number, that 174 number, are what we call simple assaults, right, or intimidation. Low-level offenses where somebody's intimidating somebody, or maybe somebody, there's a simple assault on there. That is what's driving that 174 number. Serious crime, like, I just talked about robbery down 50%. These serious things are very, very, very low on the system. This chart really talks about that too. It's per 100,000 rides, but that orange number on the bottom is serious crime, right? So it's very, very low on the system. And then that blue line, which is crime rates, really we should probably start thinking about calling that offense rates, but that blue line, we drive that number, right? And also dictates with ridership. So when the officers are out there engaging in activity on the system, that line is going to move around. Would we like to see that line very low and very steady? Yes, we do. But as we're dealing with quality of life issues, you're going to see that blue line move around in the system. So please don't panic when you see that. You should start panicking if that orange line goes up. But if you see that blue line like that, yes, we want to get it under control and have it be more consistent, but we really impact how this chart plays out. Year-to-date prosecution summary, I say this every quarter as well, our prosecutors are great to work with. And on this side of the river, Ramsey County Attorney Choi is fantastic, and so is the St. Paul City Attorney's Office. If we put together good cases, they get charged out. And so there's a large number pending in court, which is very normal. It takes time for a case to go through court. The conviction number, again, back to if we put a good case together, we're getting convictions. The dismissed in court, really the two of the largest offenses that are just getting dismissed in court are drug offenses and trespass. And you can see there's very little, this attorney declined to charge number. You can barely even see that on there. So, always encouraging the council to remember too, if you hear comments or we hear, oh, your local prosecutors they are doing their part. And if we do our part, they're doing their part, and this chart says that. What's next for the rest of 2026? A lot. Part of the handouts you have is, I think it was Councilmember Tony Carter asked last time about what are we doing about wellness. A lot. And so there's a wellness flyer that's there, and We heard an earlier presentation too, just about peer support and wellness and how we're going to take care of our staff, right? It's really important. So you're going to see a lot more conversations about wellness as we get more officers in the door, right? It's always a negotiation with Captain Ahmed because he needs the cops to get out on the street, but we want to assign a full-time officer to wellness. In conversation with Captain Dietz earlier this week too, she really oversees our wellness program. So we're going to be doing a lot more in wellness. Our chaplain program has expanded. We're working with Fit for Life from regional administration to see if, what does a full-time position look like to get assigned to the police department. So there's going to be a lot about wellness, but that's going to be taken care of the department. Like we have an app right now you can use in your phone, and that's nice, and we're making it work, but we need to really have full-time dedication and service to wellness, so we make sure that we're doing it right. Ramsey County, the city of St. Paul, or St. Paul Police Department, there's a lot of really good models out there, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to really get a staff member in there and then make it a priority. Back to supporting and really focusing on transit employees. We're going to start a transit employee assault reduction project, and we're really kind of working on that right now. And so what you're going to see is that us, along with Andrew Brody, who leads the safety department, Tim Asper from operations, we're working on really making sure that our data is really good about what is actually happening to transit workers. Now, I know from an anecdotal part that about half of all of the transit worker assaults are not physical. Right? About half of them are verbal assaults. The ones that are physical assaults, there's a very small number that are serious assaults. Nonetheless, there should be no transit worker assaults. So what we're going to do is really full court press to make sure that our data is good, right? Between the three different units there. We'll create a dashboard internally that we can track all of that stuff all the way through prosecution. And then when I talked to Captain Raymond, who oversees our investigations unit, they're going to work at finding a full-time investigator to do the transit worker assaults, because we need to follow up with the workers too. Like there's some areas that, we do definitely need to improve on, and how we're doing victim follow-up, how we're doing in treating transit worker assaults. Like we definitely need to do a better job on that, and that's what part of that project is. Expanded career development opportunities. We're looking at an opportunity to put somebody in the Minnesota Fusion Center. There'll likely be a business item document coming up. Transportation Committee is coming up soon. Our bike team, that'll be expanded too. And then looking at this emergency response team where we can have a group of officers that are trained to rapidly respond to an area if they need to. And that'll be a big deal to get that going. I talked about the police accountability liaison position, back to our commitment to ensuring that not just with transit worker assaults. If you're a victim of crime on the transit system, we need to do a better job of following up with you. And really, there's a model of policing called victim-oriented policing. So we're going to really start looking at what that looks like. We don't want you to be a victim of crime on the system, but if you are, we are going to start providing you much more services to ensure you know what your rights are and follow up. It's not just with us. There's just too many stories throughout the region of people just not getting follow up, and that's not what we should be doing. And then I talked about completing the accreditation process, and then expanding BEATS program. The BEATS are, we have downtown beat now in St. Paul here. The Midway beat is ongoing. I realized when I put this in here, there's a beat for Brooklyn Center Transit Center. A new bid starts in July, so I'm really hoping by July that beat will be there by July. But I started thinking too, the last update, we gave Councilmember Lilligren a beat at Franklin Cedar. Now we're giving Councilmember Cameron a beat at VCTC. So stay tuned. I don't know who's going to get the next beat at the next update in your area, but the beats are important. And having full-time officers, I know from all this time being a transit cop, it matters to the community, it matters to our employees, it matters to our relationship there. So I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing with the Brooklyn Center Police Department. And we just filmed a video with Chief Fleslin up there as well. So we'll get that out on social media as far as we can. So with that, there's a lot of stuff going on, great stuff. And I'll certainly take questions, but as I close out my formal presentation here, none of this work happens without you all. And every time I come and I say thank you, I do mean it, because this work doesn't happen without Chair, your support, the council support, the regional administrator support, the general manager's support. You should take pride in this presentation and the work this police department is doing, because without you all doing that, we can't do this work. So thank you.
Thank you, Interim Chief Dotseth. I, for one, love your enthusiasm for the work. It really shows, and I think it's one of the reasons you're getting such good results. I have Councilmember Barber and then Councilmember Carter after.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to echo everything Councilmember Obasakin said. They're all fantastic. Couldn't agree more. This is another example of not just having a plan, but actually doing something with that plan. And when we first put together or launched the Safety and Security Action Plan, there were a lot of issues. There were a lot of concerns. There was a lot of troubles. This was not an easy lift. This was a lot of work. But instead of looking at it just as issues, what was done both by Metro Transit PD was you looked at it and you flipped it and turned it into opportunities. And so when you look at the Metro Transit Forward, that is putting all those things into play to make the rider experience good. And we see it in the system. You see more people out in the system. You definitely see the increase in ridership. At least my feeling when I'm out in the system, and I believe Regional Administrator and I had this conversation, it feels more like a community again, which is really what we want. It is its own community, but it's because of all of your hard work. So we're not a little bit proud. We're like super proud of all of the work that you've done. We got a great opportunity with the funding from the legislature in 2023, but if we didn't take real action, we weren't going to be able to keep that. And so this is how we actually go and say, hey, we need to keep doing this, is because we're building this system that everybody envies. And so for everyone on this side of the dais, I just want to point out that if you are as proud as I am, March 18th is Transit Employee Appreciation Day. Be accompanied by an event here at 3:30. We will also have Great Day in Transit. It's an opportunity to get out and please thank them all of our staff. They all deserve thanks. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, you know, just like a lot of us, we've had a lot of apprehension about what's been going on in the system. But I want to say congratulations on the BEATS program. I remember when I was a kid, and the beat officers in the neighborhood, they had an impact because they got to know the people. And so everything starts with connection before confrontation, before resolution of any issues. So congratulations on that program, and definitely congratulations on the recruitment. I appreciate the effort and the outcome on that. And I just, as a note, I was wondering what's been the impact and outcome in conjunction with the presence of ICE in the metro area. Has that had a significant impact? Has it been something that you just was able to surmount, and maybe it was an insignificant impact in the beginning, or was it maybe not much of an impact at all?
Chair, Dr. Carter, it certainly had an impact, but how our department handles any crisis, whether it be what's been happening or was happening in our communities, to a bridge collapse or to RNC. I mean, our department is so resilient in how our officers handle themselves. And if you think about being the difference and you think about what makes a really good transit cop, we're going to overcome anything. And so how we handled normal operations during this period, really give credit to Captain Ahmed, is that it didn't impact our normal service, right? Because we had extra staff that we would bring in. That's the part of this emergency response team that will start as well too. So when we got asked to support, whether it be Minneapolis at an area, and I'll share this story too. You think about how important this police department is. We're in a EOC center. We're trying to figure out who's going where, what resources you'll need. And Minneapolis police leadership asked our team to go to not just the site on Portland Avenue, but also on Nicollet Avenue to be part of their community teams, right? So, because the community respects and understands and trusts the transit police department. So, I mean, we'll overcome any of this stuff, but it did not impact any of our normal operations, right? And so we really provided a support role to our partners in Minneapolis or St. Paul. You know what I mean? That's what our priority was. And then back to, we are the Metro Transit Police Department focusing on transit. That's where the facility liaisons, that probably impacted us the most, right? Because the facility liaisons made it an opportunity, back to turning something into an opportunity. We're out at the facilities and we'd get these questions like, I don't have a response to a lot of these questions that are coming in. But the one thing that everybody could count on is that when you saw this uniform show up, we were here to help and support the staff. So, I mean, we overcame it and we'll overcome any challenge that we have, but you know, it didn't impact normal operations, and really it gave us another opportunity for our facility liaisons to connect with our staff.
Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Chief, for the report, and actually to your entire department and your teams as well for the excellent work. And what the Chief was referring to, I think it was the last report, where before we had our safety and security action plan, we didn't really have much of a relationship as council members with Metro Transit Police Department, and that has just changed. And so my thanks to you, Chief. My thanks to Councilmember Chambliss for leading this effort, and I feel so much more able to be accountable to the people that I represent here, and I appreciate that. And I'm encouraged by the staffing report as well. And in Management Committee, just today, we had a report on the unified recruitment strategies and the success of those, and the comment about the transfer hires or people coming from other departments was brought up in Management Committee as well. And I remember there was a point where that was really low. And it seemed like it was a little bit dire, and just the idea of policing, I think, within the Metro was, I don't know, I'm just trying to psych out people's motives, but it doesn't seem like it was a positive thing. And so to see that that's reversing, I think is super encouraging and testament to your good work and the good work of a lot of people here. And my question is about perception, right? And safety is so much about perception. And you can show people all the facts and data and statistics you want, but if they don't feel safe, they don't feel safe. And so when you talk about, you know, the stats like serious crime and how far they're down in Q4, that's really encouraging. And you talked about the dashboard that you're creating. And so my question is that public facing as well? Is that something that we can use to tell this story?
Chair, Councilmember Lilligren, great questions. And so the perception of safety is definitely something that we still need to work on, right? So, I mean, we can go to every community meeting and I can show stats and we can do all this, but people need to feel that, right? So like we still have work to do, but I think that's part of the beauty part of the SSAP. That's part of the team that was up here earlier, our partnership with TRIP and supplemental security. Like we have to tell our story more and show people and like hear the good stories about people in the system. I was just in a meeting a couple weeks ago and it was a downtown safety meeting, and one of the people in the meeting is like, I don't know what you guys did in Green Line, but great job. And so I'm like, thanks, but it's a whole team that's doing that. We have to work on perception of safety because that is probably one of the largest things that we probably all hear is about, you know, well, I'm not seeing that or I'm not feeling that. So through a social media challenge, through social media avenues and just our work with our communications team, we probably need to be more aggressive about that. And so when we think about crime dashboards, we have a bunch of internal dashboards. How we launch those publicly, we should do that, right? And so it's a matter of getting the team together, figuring out what dashboards. You go back to the work that Brooklyn Center Police Department does. They have a fantastic dashboard. And so we need to think about that. But I would argue that that's just one piece of the story. I don't want everybody to get all just always focused on the stats. We have to do more work on the perception of safety. There's no question about that because people need to, and when they come back to the system, right, we need to make sure that their experience is good, right, safe, welcoming, and clean. And I know we definitely have work to do on that. We're not there yet. So I mean, even through this presentation, there's a ton of great stuff going on. Like I didn't mention the work of the Human Resources Department, but having a full-time HR recruiter, that's really changing the game. So Angela's work, and that is fantastic. And then back to our values-based hiring project. It's not just be the difference, but honesty, service, and respect. We're asking those questions. We're hiring for character. We're training for skill, and we are seeing the real results on it. And even the communication strategy about perception of safety, like as Jeremy and I are talking about strategizing our communication strategy for the rest of the year, like we've been talking about a lot about this is what we're going to do. Well, now we have to start talking about what results that we've been showing, and we have results, pages of results. And I think as we start telling more about those results of what we're doing, hopefully that'll help with the perception of safety. And we cannot, I tell the general manager this all the time, we cannot and we are not going to lose control of the system again. We're not going to let that happen through a variety of this multi-layer presence and our approach. We're not going, so that'll help too. Like we're not going to do that. So just keeping that story. But yeah, we have work to do on perception.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Chair.
Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, over here.
See you.
Thank you for all the questions, council members. That was helpful for me too. And I had in my note to ask about the perception piece of it and getting that information through community meetings. I'd like to maybe hear more about that going forward, about how we are gathering that information from our employees as well as our writers, because I think that will have an impact going forward to continue with the success that we have currently. And then also, the relationship that our staff and our CSOs and all of the other personnel has with the writers, I think is tied into that perception, as well as how we work with other entities in the region. And I'm also, because I'm kind of a data person, interested in, the crime statistics in our region, because it is a community-related concern in terms of safety and ridership needs and issues. So if we could get data on how crime is doing in our region, and maybe even similar regions, are there patterns? Because we know that there were some times where we had hot spots and times where things kind of got escalated during the pandemic. And so around the country, we had similar issues. So if we can share with other regions what was successful and what our best practices are, and seeing what their challenges are, I would be personally interested in hearing about that as well.
Chair, Councilmember Chambliss, great questions. When you talk about how data and this information gets to us, I mean, we do surveys, right? Transit does surveys with the employees and the public. So a lot of that data will come back to us and how we're doing. But, I go back to that facility liaison program. That's really what that's designed for. A lot of that stuff's going to be face-to-face conversations about how we're getting information back to us. But, the survey results, I believe, will be out soon. And that will really start telling a story about how we're doing as well. I'm glad you're talking about the relationships with the CSOs that are out there, because that is what we're trying to do. Like, you think about this big transit system that's out there, you'd be surprised how many people, it's a community, you see the same people every day, and so having the same CSOs out there, the BCOPs out there, they do create those relationships that are long-terming. When it comes to crime stats in the region, and it's always challenging to compare our stats with like a municipality or a county. It's not that we can't do it. We can certainly explore that, but everybody's got different systems and all that. I will say the work that we're doing on our dashboards, and I think we're working on communicating this invite to TSTAT, right? TSTAT's a transit council employee, like internal thing. I think you all would get a lot of interest in that TSTAT, so we'll work with the team to get those series on your calendars. But I really encourage you to come to TSTAT, because I think you'll get a much more deeper dive into stats that's going on. And then anytime that any council member has a question, or the chair has a question, or the regional administrator has a question about stat, you can certainly reach out to. And I think having some we have 2 full-time analysts, and they are fantastic, right? And they can provide all these, we have them, right? So it's a matter of you seeing that, but comparing it to what's going on it's always a challenge because our systems don't necessarily talk, but we can certainly work on trying to, what we're seeing in trends in Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is the majority of our work, but all great things that we will work on and continue to try to overlap that. But look for the TSAT invitation. I encourage everybody to try to make one of those.
Thank you. Chair, if I just might ask one more thing.
Okay.
And that is, when this initiative first started, there was a lot of information gathered from community members, from writers, and then the the Safety Security Action Plan was developed and included a lot of engagement and ideas with employees. That's why I asked that question. Yeah. And, as we're creating our action plans and reporting on the results, it's nice to be able to continue that type of engagement as well.
I agree.
Any further questions or comments? Interim Chief Dodseth, thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your detail, expertly answering questions, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Great work. On to reports. I will start and then pass it to other council members. It's a big day at a big week at the legislature. 2 days ago, I sat for a confirmation hearing. I just want to thank everybody many of you reached out to me, and thank you so much. Some with phone calls, some with emails. A couple of you said, I can be right there. Do you need me to sit with you? And I felt incredibly, some of you called me after to just get a debrief. How am I doing? And I just so appreciated hearing from so many of you. We had all of 2 days' notice. Otherwise, I would have given you guys more notice. So. But that's done. Done. I'm also going back tomorrow along with the team, Judd, Hannah, to present the governor's bonding recommendations. So I'll be both at House and Senate tomorrow. And then one last update, maybe 2, is that next week we will not have a committee of the whole. We don't have any topics. And also, myself and the regional administrator, General Manager Conderas, and Judd, Director of Government Affairs, what's his title?
Please call him Judd.
We'll be going to DC. We'll be making general rounds, no specific topics. There's always a lot to talk about. Meeting with our delegation, and also we have a time slot with the Federal Transit Administration. So we'll do a report out of those meetings the following council meeting. Lastly, near and dear to my heart, I sent you all a link to National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACTO. Actually, I didn't send it to all of you. I only sent it to the Transportation Committee. So those of you on Transportation Committee, there is a great conference coming to Minneapolis. We, through Metro Transit, have been members of this organization for about 8 years, one of the first transit agencies to become a member. This is 100 cities and transit agencies in North America that all come together to work on, it used to be very urban, but now there's as much suburban as there is urban in this because we all work together. Metro Transit will be conducting something like 9 field trips on our system for people all over the country. So I sent you a link in case you would like to register and attend or somehow be a part of it. I know I will be doing that. Registration just opened a couple days ago. It will sell out in about a week. So if you want to do it, you might think about it quickly. And it's also in your inbox if you want to check it, and we can chat if you have any questions. Okay, I will turn it to council members. Any announcements?
Not really an announcement, just a big shout out to my city of West St. Paul. Just found out that they got $50,000 and $30,000 to combat ICE, so people who are suffering from the ICE. I don't want to say what I want to say, but the ICE issues. But very proud of the mayor, part of my council mayor. I think that's awesome. And then I'll end by saying I had the privilege of meeting with OEEEO, Megan, who was in charge. Great folks, great people, very proud of them. And I'm just, it's been 6 months. It's been just awesome meeting with staff and all those great people, fine folks here and council members. And I'm privileged of serving on the 2 chairs, so it's been great. So just want to say thank you, especially you, Mr. Ryan. You really meant what you said, call me, talk to me, my doors are open. And I did call you sometimes and I emailed you and you do respond. That's awesome leadership. Some people take it for granted, but there are leaders out there who say, call me, but their doors are locked. You text them, don't text back, but this is not the case here at the council. So very proud to be here, proud of all my council members with me and staff, Nathan, and all you all. So thank you. It's been a great 6 months and I'm looking forward to the future. So with that, I'll say thank you.
Any other reports from council members? Turn it to the regional administrator.
2 comments, Madam Chair. First, I'll tie back to the previous presentations on just one comment. There's the data side, as we all talked about. There's also like the experience side, and there's the historical art piece. And it was Councilmember Barber's comment that got my brain churning on this. But, I remember a couple years ago when the council went through the process of the code of conduct work with Metro Transit, and there was this conversation on what does that do in a vacuum? Where does it fit in the broader context? And this is all part of these bigger conversations around societal permission structures and how we hold one another accountable well beyond the transit system. Parks, schools, we can name different places, but it manifests itself here, and there's all these different levels. But it made me think about my own personal experience from just a couple weeks ago. I was on a bus, and as I was sitting there, there was clearly someone who got on and kind of acted strange and then moved to the back, which kind of drew attention. It was not a super busy time of the day. And I peered over my shoulder and noticed the person was maybe going to do something they shouldn't do, pulling some stuff out. And depending upon where society is at, it's interesting that I would acknowledge that my behavior is shaped by those broader permission structures. But because of the feeling that I've had on the system more recently, I said, my initial reaction without really even thinking about it was, you can't do that here. You cannot do that here. And if you're in a spot where you're fearful for the next step, you just don't do that. You often just kind of make yourself small and you move through the day. And everyone here has experienced that in different ways. And the person's response to me was illuminating. Because they immediately were like, yeah, I shouldn't do that here, and then didn't do that here, and kind of found their way off a couple stops later, and the whole thing went on. But it also felt like other people in the same experience, we were all you're aligned in terms of vision and values. And I just want to give credit to everyone for the work going on, because that has not been the experience over the last 5 years at all times, and it's important when that is the experience. And I didn't think about that coming into today, but your comment reminded me of it. I just wanted to acknowledge the on-the-ground ways that it works. And it's how we build a better community together across everybody working together every day. And I think people then get on next time and they think differently about this isn't that space, there's kids around, and other types of things. Second comment, kudos to the team that worked through the snow and ice storm last week. That got nasty real quick. We were in a meeting with a public works director or someone who works in public works who said, it may not look bad yet, but we're getting reports on the ground that it's about to get real bad. And we kind of laughed it off. And then walking out of the building, I almost broke my collarbone. And it's it did get really bad real fast. And it deeply impacted our system and everyone's commute home that evening. But I just want to commend the work of operators and maintenance folks and the entire team. Brian sent some great videos of our teams working together to tow buses out and get overly articulated buses re-articulated appropriately and everything else. And someone else used that first. It wasn't my line. But I really appreciate it. Appreciate the entire work across the system, every operator who is behaving in ways to keep everybody safe. And for every transit vehicle facing challenges, lighter single occupancy vehicles faced even greater challenges, and they have to navigate around that while working with people. So just a big shout out to the entire system for continuing to function through a really tough night. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Great. Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. I don't know if I told you last time, but George Henry is no longer acting Deputy General Counsel. He is the Deputy General Counsel. So I wanted to make that announcement. He might have told you at the last cow, but if not, you can congratulate him at the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, great update. We will do that. We will congratulate him and you as well. Great hire. Okay, if there is nothing further, we are adjourned. We will see you in 2 weeks for the next council meeting.